Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sportsbook Confidential. My name is John Sullivan, and I'm coming to you live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York. And this little show here is to help you learn and grow as a sports bettor. Had an interesting, got a short and sweet show today. Decided to talk about home field advantage in sports betting and whether it's diminished due to a variety of influences. We'll talk about that a little bit. We've got NFL Week 6. There's 13 games on the schedule, and we'll try to find some value in those games. And before we get into those topics, let's do what we always do and start by updating my bankroll. And it was not a good week for the bankroll. However, we have been keeping track of our closing line value and if we beat the closing line, and we were doing pretty good. The Dolphins under was a loss. The Dolphins scored 47 points, I think, against the 49ers. Something crazy like that. That was minus 18 to the bankroll. We got a +1 there for beating the closing line. And then the Cowboys under, we had that horrible injury to Dak Prescott. I hope he gets better. 37 to 34. I thought the Giants offense just had so many problems that the Cowboys would, finally have a game where they would be able to control the clock and the ball movement, and that wasn't the case once again. So Cowboys may have the worst defense in the league, apparently, but their games have been going over, and for the third time this year, I bet on Cowboys under and lost. But I did beat the closing line, so I got a +1 there. And the Saints minus 7.5, they got down 20 to 3. They never really had a chance to cover. That was going to beat the closing line as well until they announced on Monday that they were benching Michael Thomas for getting in a fight in practice, and it was at -8, but it ended up at -7, so we get a -1 there for not beating the closing line. Minus 18 to the bankroll. So if you do the math, that's $54 to the negative on the bankroll. Makes our new bankroll $480. Our new bet size $16. As we divide by 30, we always do to remain selective. And our count went from +3 to +4 as we got 2 to the good and 1 to the bad there. So we're still beating the closing line more often than not, but didn't show up in the results. You'll hear poker players talk about not being results-oriented, where your process was good, but your result was not. And that was a very shining example of that this week. No wins for the bankroll, but the process was executed as designed. So take of that what you will. Hopefully we'll do better this week. All right, so let's talk about today's topic. I don't really have a sportsbook lesson. I was trying to think of something we could talk about today, and I was looking through stats, and I was thinking about doing win shares or something along those lines. But what struck me the most is home field advantage, because I think that not only has it been affected by the pandemic this year, but I think going forward, home field advantage is going to be calculated or accounted for very differently. There's no question that home court or home ice advantage has existed and will continue to exist. I'm not arguing that it's going away. It's always been there, and there have been certain places that are just very tough to play. The Kansas City Chiefs home field has their decibels are insane. The Seahawks home field at CenturyLink is a very difficult place to play. There's lots of college basketball places that are difficult to play, like Cameron Indoor Stadium in Durham, North Carolina, et cetera, et cetera. And those home advantages will continue in some degree. There's no question about it. Home field advantage will continue to some degree. However, in the midst of a pandemic and sports bubbles, I put bubbles in parentheses because they're not all the same and they're not all isolated. will home advantage be diminished by the new rules going forward? And I think that they will. There's going to be different approaches to how teams host their sporting events. And there will be safety in mind. There will be business practices in mind. There will be, they'll incorporate other things besides just the game itself. We'll have to see what's going to happen. We don't really know at this point. Will venues change their size, shape, or seating to incorporate health mandates or new business models? So, will there be smaller stadiums? Will there be no longer be mass seating, but there will be suites only? Will there be concourses only, where they'll have sit-down restaurants and social distancing and concessions, but people will just be, allowed to look over the edge of the concourse and social distance. The way that the fans are going to interact on the home fields could be changed forever. Not to say it's going to be a drastic change. Maybe a stadium that used to hold 80,000, they'll only allow 50,000 or 40,000, half the size. Or maybe they make a smaller stadium with the fans more on top of the field to keep that home field advantage going. We don't really know what's going to happen. But for the purposes of this show, it's obviously a sports betting show. It will be interesting to see how model makers adjust quantifying home advantage in future events with little or no fan interaction. And what I mean by this, in layman's terms, this is about model building. So how will the model builders like me adjust or measure home field advantage with the, no fans? So, for example, the Chiefs are at the Bills on Monday night. The Bills play very well at home, but their fans will not be in attendance. So do we adjust that home field advantage because of that? It's an unknown at this point, and I think somebody who is a very, if somebody who's potentially a very good modeler can figure out the correct way to quantify that, to put a number to it, how much of an edge there is going to find a lot of value in the sports betting world. That's something that, I try to incorporate in my model, and I do, consider it when I'm comparing lines. If I have the Bills favored by X amount of points and the line, do they add a couple of points on the line because of home field advantage or not? And that's something, it's kind of like reading the tea leaves at that point. But if you can find a way to quantify it and put it in your model, then you've got a straight number to compare to the book's number, Sportsbook's number, and see where your value is. So it's an interesting question that doesn't really have an answer at this point. There's some brand new stadiums that were built. That stadium in LA, which is beautiful, is that going to be a dinosaur, or is it going to be the future? We'll just have to wait and see. Are they're gonna seat people 6 feet apart and sell season tickets 6 feet apart? I don't know. Who knows what's going to happen? Is the business model changed forever? We talked about that in a previous episode, where the teams are relying more and more on the TV contracts and less on in-person attendance for the revenues, and thus it may affect player salaries. It may affect the business models going forward. We just don't know. But it seems like this year, that in the NFL anyway, that home field advantage has not played much of a factor in the games. There are some teams that have allowed fans in the stadium. Cleveland, the Cowboys. There may be one or two others. but there hasn't been enough of a fan influence to really affect a game. At least I don't feel that there has been. So that's a question that we're going to ponder going forward, and maybe we'll revisit that in the future. Just wanted to talk about that today, especially with games becoming more and more important as the NFL season goes on. Getting people positioning for home playoff games, and there's only one bye in each conference this year, so these games become more and more meaningful as time goes on. So that's it. So let's get into NFL Week 6, and we're going to start with the Ravens at the Eagles, +8 and 47.5. That's the line at the Sportsbook. For those of you that haven't watched the show before, the numbers in parentheses are my model. My spreadsheet I use to come up with a prediction for every game. And this model says the Ravens +8.14, 47.36. And that's almost identical to what the Sportsbook has. And when I look at those numbers and they're almost exactly the same, I see no value in betting either the spread or the total. The Ravens obviously are the heavy favorite here. Eagles have played well. They beat the 49ers, but then the 49ers lost to Miami, and that, may have diminished, taken some of the polish off that win. We'll see, but the Ravens, I think, are a very hungry, ready team, and I think they'll do well. Broncos at Patriots. This game intrigues me a lot. Patriots -9.5, 45. I have it at -7.81, 41.71. My model tends to go towards the under. Scoring's up like 6 points over the average from last year, which is insane. It's and such a huge outlier. But I just can't. It's got to be a huge discrepancy in the projection from the line for me to even consider betting it under right now. But this game intrigues me because you got Drew Lock is questionable to return. You have Cam Newton expected to return. Noah Fant is game time decision. Cortland Sutton is out. 9.5 is a lot of points here. The Broncos with Drew Lock I don't think are a bad team. Obviously the Patriots at home have just dominated. If Cam Newton was out, I would probably be all over the 9.5 here, taking the points. But since he's expected to play, and he really wasn't injured, he was just out for COVID tests, for positive COVID tests. So assuming he's just rested and practiced, it stayed in shape, not in practice with the team, but I think the Patriots are going to win this game, and I'm going to stay away from it. Browns at the Steelers. Steelers -451, -4.74, 50.78. Again, like the other game, this is right on where the numbers are. They almost match, so I don't see much betting value in this game. You have to like the way the Browns have played after a slow start to the season. Of course, Nick Chubb is expected to be out again. Kareem Hunt has done a wonderful job. Together, they're just a very intimidating duo. It will be if Kareem Hunt can pick up the slack and take a full workload. Who knows what's going to happen here, but it should not be an easy game for the Steelers. I would expect the Steelers to be the favorite here. At 4.5 or more, I kind of like the Browns, especially if it got to something like 6. I don't think it will, but that's a team that can score points, so a backdoor cover could happen quite easily. So we'll see what happens there. And then you have the Bears of the Panthers, and 2 question marks in this game. We have the Panthers -1, 44.5. I actually have the Bears favored by 0.5 point and 44.68. So the total's right on. It's a coin flip game. Don't see a whole lot of value here. The Panthers, even without Christian McCaffrey, have exceeded all expectations. I think they're 2-3 or 2-2 or something like that. And they are actually in the hunt for their division in the NFC South. The Saints not looked that great, and the Bucs have been inconsistent with a lot of injuries, and obviously the Falcons are 0-5. So Panthers are right there. The Bears with Nick Foles as the starter, that was kind of the plan all along, I think, was to have him come in and be the starter. He did not play a great game last game, and they won a battle of field goals against the Bucs. And going on the road, we'll see what happens. But, I kind of like the Panthers in this game, but I just don't see any value in betting either side here. Texans at the Titans. Titans minus 3.5, 53. Minus 5.94, 54.04. So it leans slightly to the over. The Texans, we've got, they fired their coach and GM, Bill O'Brien. They got a win, and I think they're 1-4 now. And if they want to have any shot at the division, they've got to win this game. The Titans just crushed the Bills. I like the Titans here. I don't think it's going to be another 46-17 game or whatever it was with the Bills. But I could see this being like a 27-20 type of game. But I do like the Titans at minus 3.5. Of course, I have them at almost 6 points favorites there. So minus 3 was a little too juiced. It was like minus 121 or something like that. So I like the minus 3.5. We'll keep that in our back pocket for maybe one of our plays. Falcons at the Vikings, minus 4, 54.5, minus 5.81, 51.76. So once again, like the under here, although I'm gun shy on betting any unders right now. And we got Romeo Crennel as the interim coach. Is he in Houston? I can't remember. Anyway, we have an interim coach against the Vikings at home. Vikings at home, assuming Dalvin Cook is healthy, you got to like them there. But Vikings have been so inconsistent that I just don't feel comfortable betting them right now. And obviously a must-win game for them if they want to stay in the playoff hunt. The Falcons would like to get off the schneid, but it's kind of a lost season for them already. So I don't know, 4 points, 3 points. I would feel comfortable betting the Vikings for. I just don't. You got the football team at the New York Football Giants, minus 2.5, 43, minus 2.41, 43.4. The third game that on this list so far that where the numbers have been almost identical. And I've mentioned in the past about how as the season progresses that it gets harder and harder to find value on some of these games as the sports books get better at setting lines. And I don't, ultimately we all use the same data. If I build a model or you build a model or the sports book builds a model, we're all using similar data that's out there that's available to everybody to come up and how we parse it and how we weigh it and compare it and add it and subtract it, whatever. As time goes by, we get closer and closer to the same number, and you can see it's already showing up in the lines here. So don't really have much on that game. There's not a whole lot going on there. I don't think either of these teams are going to be playoff contenders or, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe this will be a big division game for some. May end up being worth a lot. A very important game down the road. Lions at the Jaguars. Jags plus 3.5, 54.5. Plus 3.3, 50.61. Once again, my model likes the under here. The Jags have given up a lot of points. That's been their problem. And because of the high-scoring games, 3.5 is not a lot of points. I would really struggle to take a minus 3.5 on the road. It would have to be quite the mismatch. So I would skip this game altogether. I expect, even the over, because the Jags are giving up like 30 points a game. And if they can score 3 touchdowns, then they're kind of right there. So I don't know. that's certainly not going to be a highly watched game, but I do expect the Lions to win. I just don't like the 3.5. Jets at Dolphins. Dolphins minus 9.5, 47, minus 9.68, 47.19. So the total, it's right on. My numbers and their numbers are almost identical. You've got the Dolphins coming off their big road win against San Francisco. I feel like they're going to fall back to earth a little bit, but they're playing the Jets with probably Joe Flacco at quarterback, and Le'Veon Bell is released. And what do you got? I think the only question is if the over is going to hit here. I don't know. This game has so many question marks for me that I have to stay away from it. The Dolphins would like to get this win to stay in the hunt, but we'll just have to see. It's the Jets and the Falcons are two teams that are just, their seasons are already pretty much over. I hate to say that, but they have to figure out a way to pick up the pieces and get ready for the next one. Packers at Bucks. This is probably going to be one of the highlight games of the weeks. Bucks plus 155.5. I have the Packers as 2.22 favorites, 51.53. So again, model likes the under. I would have to say that the Bucks have too many injuries for my liking. I'm not saying that Green Bay is going to go undefeated this year, but they've played really well, even when they're not at 100%. I feel like they have a really good defense, and obviously Aaron Rodgers has had a fantastic year, and he's been able to make all the players around him better, and I really like the Packers here, even on the road. If you're not laying any points, they're laying 1 right now, so we'll see what happens. But I would stay away from the total because the Packers could put up 35 any game. Rams at the 49ers, very interesting divisional game. 49ers plus 352. I have them at Rams as 1.54 point favorites. 49.24. Now, I do think the under here is in play. The Rams have a very good defense. 49ers offense obviously has been struggling. And I think the 49ers defense is better than what they showed last week. I think the game got out of hand early and it was kind of a lost cause. So I don't expect this. I expect this to be like a 24-17 type of game. I really do expect it to be an under. I don't like laying 3 on the road with the Rams. I kind of like 49ers plus 3. I feel like Garoppolo, he got benched in the second half last week. I feel like he'll, have a better game. I expect more out of him. Monday, you got Chiefs at the Bills, plus 4, 57.5, plus 4.65, 51.47. And, this is where I have to trust my model. 57.5 is a super high total. I don't think, there's only been a handful of times that totals have been 58 or more in the last 20 years. And, we've talked about, even though the league average is up this year, if on that bell curve of average scores in a league, you're all the way up here. So, under is more likely to happen on a league average perspective as opposed to the matchup perspective. Now, this could end up being a 41-38 shootout. And, I've had my fair share of those experiences already this year. But I feel like the Bills have a better defensive performance than they did last week. And, a lot of it has to do with them turning the ball over like they did last week. If they can avoid the turnovers, it should not be a washout like it was. So I'm gonna keep an eye on that under. 57.5 is a really, really high number in the NFL. And Bills +4. This could be a very competitive game. These teams are in the same stratosphere. You got the Ravens, the Steelers, the Chiefs, the Titans, and the Bills. Those are the cream of the crop. I guess you could say New England too, but this is going to determine whether the Bills are in that top stratosphere of the league or not. And it certainly doesn't crush their playoff chances if they lose, but it's a good measuring stick after a bad game to see if they can bounce back. Cardinals at the Cowboys on Monday night. Cowboys +155. I have Cowboys as a 0.43 favorite, 52.34. So that's pretty close. You got to think that this game, it's a full game of Andy Dalton. We don't really know. We don't really know what the Cowboys are going to put up on the offensive side of the ball. We know they're going to give up 27 points to the Cardinals. I would be very surprised if the Cardinals didn't score at least 27, 28 points. This could easily be another, 38-35 type game. I like the Cardinals here a lot. I think the Cowboys are in trouble without Dak Prescott. I don't know if I'm going to wager on this game, but this is what I'm going to watch for sure because I feel like the Cardinals are a legit playoff team. They have as much a shot at the division as anybody else, assuming somebody can slow down Seattle for one or two losses. We'll see what happens. But I think they're a for-real team. So we'll see if the Cowboys can bounce, can keep it going with Andy Dalton there. So, all right, so let's wrap it up with my picks. I'm going to take the Titans -3.5 at -103. That's a really good number for the -3.5. The Texans are just it's kind of a lost season for them, and they're going to win a couple of more games. And I'm not saying their season's over, but at 1-4, they've got to start winning games. And I think this is just too tall a task. The Titans have been rested and at home and are obviously feeling very good about themselves. And I'm not saying that it's going to be a blowout win, but I feel comfortable with the Titans finishing this game off. The Packers money line against the Bucs. I said I didn't want to lay points on the road, and I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna take them instead of -1 at -110. I'm taking a money line at -114, and I'm counting on Aaron Rodgers to get the job done. See what happens there. And then Monday, I'm going to take the Chiefs and the Bills under 57.5. Hope for the best. That's a huge number, and I don't think the Chiefs have broken that number too many times this year. I know week 1 they didn't, and against a couple other teams they didn't, the Ravens and the Chargers, and so I feel like that's a value bet at under 57.5 -110. So that's going to do it. Hopefully we'll get some wins this week. Watch me not beat the closing lines and get wins. So that's how it goes sometimes. It never goes that smoothly. But next week, we'll have another episode, and we'll have the grand final of Aussie Rules Football. And we'll have some more NFL and hopefully a new sportsbook lesson for you. So enjoy the weekend, and let's get some winners. I'll play the outro music for you. And there we go. Take care, everybody. See you next time.